In this lesson, we're going to look at solving multi-step inequalities. So how do I solve two-step inequalities? Solve the inequality and then graph your solution. I have negative 4x plus 3 is greater than 15. So I'm going to rewrite my inequality down here. Alright, so I'm going to solve this like I do two-step equations, except for I do have to remember that if I multiply or divide by a negative number that I have to flip the sign. So I'm going to start by isolating the variable. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, giving me a negative 4x is greater than 12. And now because I'm going to be dividing by a negative, remember you have to remember to flip your sign. So x is going to be then, I'm going to flip the sign, and 12 divided by negative 4 is going to give me a negative 3. So I'm going to make a negative 3 on my number line, and I'm going to have an open circle, and then I'm going to go to the left. There we go. All right, our next one. I've got 7x plus 8 is greater than 22. All right, so let's solve by, first of all, subtracting 8 from both sides. And so then I'm going to have 22 minus 8. That's going to give me 14. And I've got 7x. All right, so now let's divide by 7. And so x is going to be greater than, that canceled out, 2. So I'm going to have a 2, and it doesn't include it. It's just going to be greater than, so I'm going to go to the right. All right, let's look at a couple more. I've got negative 7 is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 9. All right, so let's start. Remember, we're trying to get the variable all by itself, so I'm going to first subtract 9 on both sides. So I'm going to have a negative 16 is greater than or equal to then negative 2x. So now I'm going to divide by a negative 2. Negative 16 divided by negative 2 is going to be a positive 8. Now I just divided by a negative, so I have to flip my sign, and I'm going to have x. So, and again, here's one where I've got my variable is coming second. So you might want to rewrite that, because you read this as x is greater than or equal to 8, because the greater sign, the bigger sign, is facing the x. So x, I'm going to flip it, because see here, this side's open to that, so that I'd have to have it open to this one. And then I'm going to have 8. Just makes it a little bit easier for you to graph. And so 8, and I'm graphing x is greater than or equal to, so it's going to include 8 and everything bigger than 8. All right, and then our last one, I've got 2.3x minus 6.9 is less than 7.13. All right, so I'm going to start by adding 6.9 on both sides. So I'm going to have 7.13 plus 6.9. And that's going to give me a 2.3x is less than 14.03. Now it's multiplying, so I'm going to divide 2.3 and divide by 2.3. X is going to be less than 6.1. All right, so make a 6.1 on our number line, and it's going to be open because it does not include it. And then it's going to go off to the left. All right, so now we need to take a look at how you solve multi-step inequalities. So solve the inequality and then graph your solution. All right, so I'm going to write it down here. And we're doing them just the same way, except for I just have more steps. All right, so I'm going to solve this one. You can do one of two things here. You could either distribute the negative 1/3, or you can multiply by its reciprocal. I'm just going to go ahead and just distribute this, because remember, you want to have simplified everything on one side before bringing it over to the other. So I'm going to have negative 1/3 x, and then negative 1/3 times positive 12 is going to give me a negative 4 is less than 5. All right. So now I want to add my 4 to both sides. It's going to give me a 9. So negative 1/3 x is less than 9. So now I'm going to divide by a negative 1/3, which is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 3 times negative 3, and now I just multiply by a negative. So x, or maybe I should write it up top there, x, then I'm going to flip the sign, is greater than negative 27. All right, so I'm going to have a negative 27 on my number line, and it's going to be just greater than, so it's not going to include it, negative 27. All right, our next one, 9x plus 2 is less than 5x minus 18. So first of all, check to see, can you simplify anything on each side? And I can't because they're not like terms. So now let's go ahead and we're going to combine our variables. We're going to have negative 5x minus 5x. It doesn't matter which side. I always like to leave my x to be positive. So I'm going to have 4x plus 2 is less than negative 18. All right, so minus 2 minus 2. That 4x is less than negative 20. And I'm going to divide by a positive 4. So my x is going to be less than negative 5. So find negative 5 on your number line. And it's going to be open, and it's going to go to the left. All right, so let's go ahead and do number 3. We have 3 times 2x minus 7 is greater than 15. So we're going to simplify on this side here first. So I'll have 6x minus 21 is greater than 15. And we're going to isolate the variable by adding 21 to both sides. And 6x is going to be greater than 36. So now I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. And x is going to be greater than 6. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll just plot a 6 on our number line. And it's not going to include the 6, but it's going to include everything that's greater than it. So it's going to be an open circle going to the right. All right, number 4, our last one. 6w plus 3 is less than 2w plus 15. All right, so now we're going to solve this inequality. Let's first of all, I'm going to minus my 2w. I'm going to combine my variables first, giving me a 4w plus 3 is less than 15. And now we have to continue to isolate the variable then. Minus 3, and that gives me a 12 here. 4w, I'm going to divide by 4, and w is going to be less than 3. All right, so I'm going to plot on here. There's 3, and I'm going to go everything that is less than 3, so it would be the 2, the 1, 0, negative 1, and so forth. All right. So in this lesson, we took a look at how you can solve multi-step inequalities.